Okay, now it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Chris Wadawa. He is Senior Manager for the North America Business Seller BU, and he will be leading our panel of Selling API in Conversation. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're almost set up here. How's everyone doing? Awesome. All right. Well, first of all, before we get started, my name's Chris, like Gail said, and I want to thank every one of you for being here. All my sellers, all my partners, all the developers, all the eBay folks. Thank you for being here. All right, so I have some guests here, so I'm going to start introducing folks over here. So I have Homan from Sellbrite, Craig McCallum from Developing IT, and Scott Van der Leer from Cadro Systems, who are going to join us on the panel. All right, welcome, Homan. Also going to have a couple of eBay folks join us here, and you've seen this guy many times today. Vikas is going to be here on the panel with us, and Hugh Mahoney. For those of you who were part of the onboarding breakout, he's the guy from there. All right. Welcome, guys. Great. All right. So let's start off with some introductions. Why don't we start with Homan here?
Hi, I'm Homan Chow from Sellbrite. We're a company based out of Pasadena, California, and we're sort of like channel advisor for SMB. We do multi-channel stuff.
Craig?
Yeah, Craig McCallum from Scotland, as you probably can tell. So hopefully you can understand. Developing IT, we do consultancy for eBay and also development, and we have a product suite which is OptiSeller, which helps sellers grow their business.
And Scott.
Scott Vandalin from Cadro Solutions out of Raleigh, North Carolina. We're an e-commerce focused software development company. We started working with eBay about 6 years ago, doing a lot of MIP integrations. And right now we have a product called Marketplace Manager, which also does integrations into sellers' backends and manages the integrations with marketplaces like eBay.
Awesome. Go ahead, Vikas.
Hi, I'm Vikas. I'm director of eBay Selling Platform team.
Hugh Mahoney. You didn't even ask. I'm just going to say my name. I figure I'm next. Hugh Mahoney. I am a PM with B2C Selling at eBay and work on a number of projects, including like business registration, and I've been working a long time getting sellers onboarded to eBay.
Okay, great. So, Chris Wadawa, I lead the North America B2C Selling Platforms team on the business side. So Vikas is my partner on the product side. I handle the business side of this equation. So great, again, welcome. I'm going to start off with a little bit of an icebreaker question for our panelists, our guests from the three companies here. So generally speaking, right, we have a nice community. We really value our developers. How effective is our communication, and what gaps do you see? Is it, looking for improvements, suggestions for improvements, honestly? What is not working? What is working great? Start with.
I actually can't say enough good things about eBay's communication. I don't think any other channel we work with has something like the developer console, and Lisa does a great job of that. But to have a pipeline directly with eBay developers and have a say in the direction that you're taking is phenomenal. I think also the fact that you have a developer.ebay.com and being able to submit tickets and get a timely response is something other channels don't do. You're sort of sometimes left in the wild of a forum. They would say, we don't support API questions, just ask your question on the forum, but we don't know the definitive answer. Is the timestamp supposed to be ISO 8601 or whatever other format? I think what could be improved is sometimes the questions that are answered in the tickets are too much to the letter and doesn't volunteer any new information. An example I gave was when we asked about the new APIs, whether we would have to OAuth our customers twice, which would be a bad experience on our side if we designed, come to Sellbrite and click here, it opens up an eBay login, and now you're authenticated in our feeling was, oh, if it's a new set of OAuth, we would have to do that twice, once for the old one and once for the new one. And I just learned yesterday that's not the case, right? The new one is backwards compatible with the old one. But the way it was answered in the ticket, we said, do you have to OAuth twice? And they say, okay, yes. But they didn't volunteer that it was backward compatible. So that's one sort of improvement.
Awesome. Thank you. Craig?
Yeah, and well, from our perspective, things are generally very good. There are times when they could improve, but there's times when we can improve also. So, you know, that's just life. One thing, though, I would call out is you make great announcements, great initiatives, and drive it based off the information that you have. There's sometimes, though, that doesn't make it all the way around the world at the same time. So for us being European-based, we hear a lot of things coming from here, from .com, and just being able to maybe sometimes give us some visibility on what that rollout is around the different territories would make a big difference to us, because you get our customers excited. We see the new functionality coming, and then it's, well, actually, guys, you need to wait 3 months, 6 months. That's my only bit of feedback on the negative side.
Okay.
I'll second the fact that we've had a lot of good experiences, a lot of good communication with eBay, a lot of good relationships with the people in there, which makes a big difference. There are, you know, the DTS, the whole process for the most part has been pretty responsive. Certainly there are times, and I've discussed this, where the answers sometimes gloss over the question. We want them, you know, more analytical dive down into what the root cause is. You know, the only other thing I'd like to see is probably some more you know, announcements whenever things change. There have been a number of times where we've gone and we've been on the developer site and said, oh, look, a new feature or something's changed, and we didn't know about it until we happened to run across it.
Okay. All right. Well, I was told I need to speak up louder, so I'm going to yell here.
Can I add something? I know the question was to the guests, but just based on what you had mentioned about developer technical support, I do want to call out Lisa, that she is a fantastic developer evangelist. She comes fight with all the different teams in eBay on behalf of the developers. Like just this afternoon, she introduced me to a lady for whom she's been trying to get some answers from eBay. And in that particular case, we've had some challenges, and like she's constantly working on your behalf. So thank you, Lisa, and she's a great proponent.
I think I will echo what Vikas said, but generally, I think everyone on eBay is on our developer side. You started off today with Sunil, you know, compliment the fact that we obviously cannot have so many developers. So we really value this relationship. And Gail, thank you for putting this great event together. This is really awesome. I'm going to switch a little bit into the inventory management aspect. All right, so this is not necessarily inventory APIs. If you're using them, great, would love to hear about them. But what are the challenges that you face when you're helping your sellers managing inventory on eBay, right? Creating new listings, managing inventory. What do we do great or good as compared to your other channels? What are some room for improvements? And the material that we've covered today, does some of that help address some of those challenges and what is left out there? Maybe we can start with Scott this time.
Sure. So I think the biggest problem that our sellers face is with data, right? The data mapping into the eBay ecosystem, matching doing the taxonomy, matching the item specifics, and a lot of that goes, of course, back to how good and consistent the seller's data is to start with. But there are also a lot of places, especially if we're talking about the fashion categories in eBay, that have a lot of restrictions, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done there to match the right values for the item specifics and the size labels and getting all the categories right. So that is definitely, especially for those sellers, probably our biggest challenge, to work with them and try to do some, set up a consistent mapping strategy for them, so they're not going back and having to manually redo things later on, that we can set something up that allows them to flow forward after the onboarding without having to come back in and do manual setup.
Yep, great point.
Well, for us, one of the biggest challenges is explaining the concept of what a listing ID is. So You know, if you're dealing with the kind of large sellers, large merchants, large retailers, they have no concept of what listing ID. So moving to SKU-based across the APIs is going to make a huge difference. Yes. So
There we go.
well done. That's the first thing. But once we get over that, we still then have the challenge around what is a SKU. So working with the European retailers, they all have different understandings of what a SKU is. So being able to consistently transpose their understanding into what we're doing now is going to be a challenge going forward, and to make that manageable for them is also going to have its challenges for us. But that data, as Scott suggested, is the biggest thing. Categorization, taxonomy, and dare I say that if we take parts compatibility and how that works, it works differently in the US than it does in the UK, than DE, and around France, Italy, and Spain, and Australia, trying to explain that to a single seller who trades in all these markets. That's a big challenge on the APIs.
Okay.
And I'd also like to echo what's been said already. I think the ideal scenario everybody thinks how the world should work is you just have some CSV data and I want to just take my products and throw it onto this channel like that. But the reality is it's much more difficult than that, right? So I don't know which conditions are available to me until I know which channel I'm on, but I don't know what the channel ID is until I've sort of drilled down this taxonomy. And once I get there, I don't know what the requirements are until I make another API call for, okay, in this category, this GTIN is required or whatever. Things that I think are unnecessarily hard are things like in the add item call, there's a weight major and a weight minor. You could have just used a fractional, a decimal or something, right? So you don't have to make pounds and ounces. But those are minor things. But I think that's the main concern, is that I think us as in the tech industry or in the e-commerce industry maybe should come up with some sort of ISO universal standard for what a product is, instead of every channel sort of doing it differently. This is a variation on eBay, but it's sort of nested within a listing, so you've got like one set of weights, whereas on Amazon, your variations could be different weights, right? Nobody agrees on how to do this, and so variations are kind of the bane of e-commerce.
All right, so I think we have some work cut out for our taxonomy team to answer some of these questions. I, unfortunately, am not the person to answer those.
Well, to defend our taxonomy team for a moment, I agree those are challenges, but they have made investments in taxonomy with the new taxonomy API, and there's more. I know there's more good stuff on the way from them. Definitely, we recognize that pain point, and you're right. It's critical to get it in the right category. That's like number one, and for best practice, really the best way to do that is if you've got the GTIN, if you've got the UPC, and it's in our catalog, bam, you've got the right category because we know what it is, right? If you've got those GTINs, we can supply not just category, but all kinds of information on the listing. And with the new inventory API, you can give us very little information if it's in our catalog, and we'll do the rest. But yeah, that obviously doesn't cover all SKUs.
And we'll get there. We will get there, right? The catalog is improving daily. So we're on the right path, and we're on a journey. We're on it together.
Let me ask questions. I think there's part of your question. How does it work better on other channels?
Well, I guess some other channels may not require that many things up front. This one is not a marketplace, but Shopify, for example, you need very little to get it live into the store. So you can sort of populate those things afterwards. You can get them and then say, okay, now I'm missing the image. So you can sort of progressively update it. Whereas with eBay, you sort of have to pick it up front, and it's those things that sort of dictate what other things you can put, which are detrimental if you don't have them. And I think on Etsy, you also have to maybe pick your category, but I think there's less nuanced requirements that go along with that thing.
Okay.
If I can make a comment about that too. So I don't necessarily think it's an eBay problem. it's, it's a problem for any marketplace. And there's a trade-off. So if you're in a marketplace or any kind of selling site that is a lot more free form, it's easier to list the products, but the buying experience is worse. Right? So I think it's a good thing to try to do it in a more structured way, and you're moving that way. And there's some things like the fact that there are different size labels for different categories within the fashion catalog that could be done differently. But the fact that you have required item specifics so that people, when they're going in and browsing, that they know, it's much easier for them to find what they want. I think that's a good thing. It just, on the flip side of that, makes it harder to map to them.
Got it.
Okay, great. Should not be moving. All right. So one of our missions over this, I would say, reinvention of the APIs, right, is that we want feedback, and we want it early in the cycle. We do not want to go to the end product and be like, oh, we developed something, and there's zero adoption, because that's not what the market wants, right? That's not what our sellers want. That's not what our partners want, right? So we really want to work with partners such as you, all of you guys here, in a beta program, in a more, upfront, help us get this right, scenario. I don't know if any one of you guys has had that opportunity. If yes, then how was it? And if you haven't had that opportunity, I want to hear, I think we all, eBay team wants to hear, how would we work best together, right? How do we get this constant feedback mechanism into our development cycle as we go along? Craig, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Thanks. So, we've had early visibility of a number of things over recent years. What does it do? Well, it allows us to give you feedback as quickly as possible. But one thing that I would ask for as part of that going forward is clear understanding of what your objectives are as a business on why you're doing the new initiatives, so that we can get alignment when we're talking to our joint customer base as to why they should do something, rather than it just being an initiative being driven by eBay for something new and shiny. We need to make sure that that's the best reasons, and we can help identify the best sellers to work with jointly, so we get valued feedback back right round the loop to help us, to help you, and ultimately to help the sellers sell more. That's what we're here to do. We're here to help the sellers sell more stuff. I was going to say something else with an S, but stuff will do.
All right.
So we haven't implemented any of the new APIs. We've looked at them, we've evaluated them. It's going to be slow for us to move to the inventory API from our existing platform. There's obviously overhead involved with that. But we're very excited about the marketing API, the new guidance APIs coming out. I think that we have a lot of really good uses for those. Now, in terms of feedback, we'd love to give you feedback. Obviously, we have relationships with a lot of you, so we can give you direct feedback. I think there may be an opportunity to set up better communication channels for the other 380,000 developers who are out there, in terms of, if you're on the developer platform, a place to specifically do feedback versus, just going to support ticket or something like that.
Okay. Rowan?
And we're a smaller team, so it takes us a bit longer to get on the bleeding edge of things. So although we would like to ramp up being able to give feedback, currently we're not on the new APIs. But from what I've seen today, it looks pretty promising and new and modern. And I think you made the right decisions with doing variation groupings. And so we'd like these bigger guys to hash out all the bugs first, and then we'll come in and play with it.
Well, we try. Because I'm going to ask you the same question. What do you want from a partner?
So first, let me say what we have done. Amongst the 6 API suites that the Sell API suites, which Gail talked about yesterday, for every single one of them, we had early adopter partner whom we were working actively with. And working actively means both in the interface definition itself, what kind of things that API should do, and working with them together on building their own application so that they can test it out, give us feedback. We've done that with companies like Channel Advisor, BigCommerce, and so on. And that's our goal going forward as well, that for every new capability we build through API, we seek out partners who are really interested in that capability and work with them early in the development process. I'm so excited that today, as we talked about Guidance API after the last session, I've gotten interest from at least 8 or 9 folks who have come to me that they want to participate in an early access program. So we'll do that now. I say early access program. We don't have a very formal program around it. Maybe we should consider something. But yeah, we will be working actively with some of the partners who've reached out to us on getting feedback on these new guidance APIs.
I'm going to ask Hugh, because he was involved in one of the recent ones. How was the experience for both you and team in general?
I thought it was pretty amazing. So we worked closely with a partner when we were building out the APIs to sort of beta test everything and get early feedback. And yeah, it was, I think, invaluable for us. And I credit the team for taking that feedback and being really engaged. And you know, the end product is because of how engaged our partner was. And I'll say our leadership is always encouraging us. So Gail and Sunil are always pushing us to be in touch with the customers, and in this case, developers are our customers for the APIs, and we really want to be in touch with you guys through the whole life cycle of the process.
Absolutely. No second doubts about that. This one's going to go to Vikas. I was in the eBay Connect lounge there. Probably heard this question too many times today.
Okay.
All right. So a lot of questions on LMS versus feed platform. What is the future of LMS? What is our plan with LMS?
What does LMS stand for?
Large merchant services. So, yeah, I mean, I think the question was also posed to Ganga when he was delivering the talk on inventory, the session on inventory APIs. So going forward, our plan is that we're going to have, you know, like UI, APIs, and feeds. And APIs, for the most part, they are single item, single calling APIs. But wait, actually, let me back up. Is everyone here familiar with LMS? Because otherwise, I'll be on a tangent. Okay, so let me first define what LMS is, because majority of people do not know. Essentially, it is a bulk way, bulk way of calling the trading API. So you group a bunch of the trading API calls into a single file, and it's an asynchronous process. You send it, and then you know, those calls are executed, and you get intimated about when the calls are done. So our goal with going forward is for bulk operations overall, we feel feeds is the better way to manage the bulk operations. So like you can use the feeds, the MIP platform that we've built to do your bulk operations. If you're using APIs and when on a case-by-case basis where we really feel that we have certain very high volume calls when more efficiencies are needed. For example, the example which Ganga gave was on price and quantity. This is something which sellers constantly make updates on like lots of SKUs. So there we have introduced a bulk call, which is, you can think of it as a equivalent of what you would have achieved through LMS. But we have introduced that bulk call in the new API suite. We'll make that case-by-case decision, but as such, we will not build an exact equivalent of LMS in the new API suite. Does that answer the question people had on LMS, or is there anything else on it?